The video shows large crowds at Social Security offices across China, highlighting a surge in Social Security contribution withdrawals. This follows ongoing government adjustments to Social Security policies and the delayed retirement age. China's Social Security system provides mandatory financial support for citizens in cases of retirement, illness, unemployment, work-related injuries, and childbirth, with contributions from both employers and employees. But many are now questioning whether continuing contributions is worthwhile. Recently, the authorities announced a 15-year plan to gradually increase the retirement age. Additionally, the minimum required contribution period for pensions has been raised from 15 to 20 years, causing widespread frustration among the public. As protests against the retirement delay have proven ineffective, many citizens have lost trust in the government. Those eligible are now rushing to withdraw their contributions to minimize their losses, resulting in the long line seen in the video.
I've withdrawn my Social Security. I just got back from the Social Security office, and the process is done. Whether I regret it or not is my own business. My family has mixed opinions on this. My mom agrees with the decision, and after doing the math, I figured it wasn't worth it, so I chose to withdraw. My dad and sister don't agree, but the final decision was mine, and I went through with it. Now, I've officially stopped my Social Security contributions. The Social Security office said they could refund me what I paid this year, which is around 3 or 4 months' worth. The rest of the money I've paid can only be refunded when I reach retirement age, and they'll only give back 40%. The other 60% has already gone into the general pension fund, which means it's been used up and won't be refunded. When I went to withdraw, I saw several others doing the same thing with their pension funds, so it's really up to you whether to withdraw your Social Security or not.
In China, similar to many other countries, Social Security is a system designed to provide financial support for people in the event of accidents, loss of workability, or retirement. At first, it might sound like the welfare systems in developed countries, where the government offers benefits to its citizens. However, in China, Social Security payments are mandatory. A portion of people's income is taken as a social insurance tax and is placed into a government-managed fund. People can only access fixed payments or compensation from this fund if they meet certain conditions. In short, if you contribute, you're entitled to benefits. If you don't, you get nothing. To receive a pension, you have to pay into the fund for at least 15 years. Now, after paying into the system for over a decade, many Chinese citizens find themselves unable to access the benefits they were promised due to frequent policy changes. What the Chinese Communist Party once called a national welfare system has become, for many, a welfare trap. People continue paying, but the day they can collect their benefits seems increasingly distant.
I've been diligently paying personal income tax, Social Security, and the housing fund for over a decade. Except for 2 breaks when I resigned without a new job lined up, I've been making continuous contributions. So basically, I've spent over 10 years as a regular worker at big tech companies. Recently, I heard the news that the Social Security contribution period is being extended from 15 to 20 years. On top of that, I'm facing a 1.5 million yuan penalty for violating a non-compete clause. So I've made a new decision. I'm leaving the grind and going home to take it easy. What does that mean? It means that Shanghai is losing one of its taxpayers. And what does losing a taxpayer mean? It means that the personal income tax that I've been paying, along with my Social Security and housing fund contributions, amounts to what a mid-level government official earns in a year. It's a pretty substantial sum. I wouldn't say I'm ungrateful or unwilling to contribute to society anymore. I'm just really exhausted. I feel a little sorry that Shanghai's government employees will have one less taxpayer to fund their salaries, but no worries, there are still plenty of big companies that can still pay the taxes. So honestly, my absence won't make a big difference. Still, I do feel a bit of regret for them, and I hope every civil servant continues to get.
If every company and individual paying taxes and Social Security start thinking like this woman, especially with the government already in severe debt, the Chinese government could be headed for a major collapse. On September 13th, the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress announced plans to gradually increase the retirement age. Starting January 1st, 2025, the legal retirement age for male workers will be raised from 60 to 63. For female workers, it will be pushed from 50 to 55. And for female government officials, from 55 to 58. Furthermore, starting January 1st, 2030, the minimum contribution period required to receive a pension will increase by 6 months each year until it reaches 20 years, up from the current 15 years. If someone reaches retirement age but has not contributed for long enough, they will need to extend their contributions or make a lump sum payment to qualify for the basic pension. This abrupt change has been difficult for many people who have been paying into the system for over a decade to accept.
我跟我老婆两个人都买了社保。
Both my wife and I bought Social Security. We're enrolled as flexible workers. I started last year, and she started the year before. The reason we bought it in the first place was to have some basic financial security when we're older. Between the two of us, we've paid a total of 60,000 yuan. But if we withdraw, we can only get back 24,000. So now withdrawing from Social Security has become a stressful decision. If we continue paying, each of us will have to contribute for another 17 or 18 years. My wife thinks it's better to cut our losses now, since we haven't been paying for long. I asked her what we'd do if we stopped paying Social Security, and she said we could switch to the new rural cooperative medical insurance, which costs 400 yuan a year. She thinks this is a way to pay less, so why not?
少拿点就少拿点吧。
The government's decision to gradually raise the retirement age and increase the minimum years of Social Security contributions has been widely criticized by the public. More and more people are worried that even though they pay into Social Security on time, they might not receive their pensions at all. Others fear that with the new policies, the pension they eventually receive will be less than what they've already contributed. It's like when my wife and I went to a noodle shop. The owner said the noodles cost 15 yuan a bowl, with a wait time of 60 minutes for men and 50 minutes for women. We both paid, waited 40 minutes, and then the owner suddenly said the price had gone up, 5 yuan per bowl, and the wait time would be 3 more minutes for men and 5 more minutes for women. Is that fair? We had already agreed on the price and the wait time, but now they're asking for more. What kind of credibility is that? Naturally, customers worry that even if they pay more and wait longer, the owner could change their mind again, and we still wouldn't get the noodles. If a customer decides they don't want the noodles anymore, the owner refuses to give a refund. The customer is stuck, neither able to move forward or back out. The only option is to blow it up. In this situation, it would be strange if people weren't complaining. Young people, in particular, are feeling the effects of this policy change. Already struggling with unemployment, they now face the added burden of paying into Social Security, and many have decided to give up on it completely. In April, an article suggesting that many people would rather skip healthcare or pension than keep paying for Social Security went viral on Chinese social media. What stood out was the overwhelming support from young people in the comments. One food delivery worker said his 700 yuan Social Security contribution, around $100, requires him to make 100 deliveries, and he'd rather spend that money on toys for his children. Another person said he doesn't pay into Social Security because he's worried he won't live long enough to collect it. Someone else mentioned that contributing is too much of a burden. His monthly salary is only 3,500 yuan, which is about $500, and after paying Social Security, he's left with almost nothing, so he decided not to pay. A blogger analyzed why more and more young people are choosing not to pay into Social Security. He said it's because they're both aware of the situation and financially struggling. He said,
Why
don't young people want to pay into Social Security these days? Former government of People's Bank of China, Zhou Xiaochuan, said it's not the young people's fault. It's a problem with how the Social Security system is set up. To put it simply, because of the times, many of the elderly who are retired today never paid into Social Security when they were working because the system didn't exist back then. But now they're receiving pensions. On the other hand, only 40% of what young people pay into Social Security goes into their own personal accounts for future use. The other 60% goes into a general fund to pay for the pensions of today's retirees. When these young people retire, their pensions will be paid by the younger generation at that time. So the elderly who are now receiving pensions without having contributed are leaving a permanent shortfall in the Social Security system. This gap can only be filled by passing the burden onto future generations. Many of the elderly don't accept the fact that their pensions are being funded by young people. They think that because they contributed to society when they were young, they deserve their pensions. But what they should understand is that it's not the young people who owe them, it's the government. Then there's another group of young people who move from rural areas to the cities. Their parents don't have pensions, Yet these young people are being asked to pay into a system that supports urban retirees. Seeing this, how could young people still want to pay into Social Security? Some people believe that the high unemployment rate and the increasing number of flexible workers are key reasons why so many are stopping their Social Security payments. According to the National Healthcare Security Administration, there are over 200 million flexible workers in China, but only about 50 million are enrolled in employee medical insurance, less than half. If even the more affordable medical insurance has such low participation, the situation with the more expensive pension insurance is likely even worse. This means that around 150 million flexible workers have no guaranteed healthcare or retirement coverage. The reason they're not paying into Social Security is simple: they can't afford it. Many people might wonder, can people really not afford to pay Social Security? While it might not be a big deal for regular employees, it's a heavy burden for those in flexible jobs or those who are unemployed. Most flexible workers, like delivery drivers, ride-hailing drivers, restaurant staff, content creators, street vendors, or self-employed people, have to work harder and longer hours to make a similar income to full-time employees. According to a report from Alipay, most flexible workers earn between 2,000 and 8,000 yuan a month. If they had to pay the full amount for Social Security, it would barely be enough. For example, in Shanghai, the contribution base is set at 7,310 yuan. Even if they pay the minimum for the pension and medical insurance, it costs 2,558 yuan a month. A delivery driver in Shanghai who makes 8,000 yuan a month might spend 2,000 yuan on basic housing and 1,500 yuan on food. After paying for Social Security, they'd only have 1,942 yuan left. In cities like Beijing or Shenzhen, where the Social Security costs are a bit lower, flexible workers still pay around 1,800 yuan in Beijing and just over 1,100 yuan in Shenzhen. But even then, they're only saving about 1,000 yuan compared to Shanghai, leaving them with just over 3,000 yuan. And that's assuming they earn 8,000 yuan a month. For these workers, their income often goes towards supporting their household, caring for elderly parents, and paying for their children's education, so there's hardly anything left. If they don't make 8,000 yuan a month, it might be difficult just to cover their own living expenses, let alone pay for Social Security. The issue of people halting their Social Security payments didn't begin in 2024. In fact, many had already abandoned this last line of protection during the pandemic.
中国工作室内人口一半人连社保都没有。
Half of China's working age population doesn't even have Social Security. By the end of 2023, 379 million people in China were enrolled in basic employee pension insurance, while there are 740 million employed people and 87 million unemployed. This means around 360 million workers don't have Social Security at all. While the economy is struggling and the delayed retirement policy is in play, it's likely that even more people will stop paying into Social Security or withdraw from the system this year. A Chinese citizen named Ms. Liu told Western media that the Chinese government continues to make empty promises and deceive the public. However, with many young people now able to bypass internet restrictions and access the truth, the CCP can no longer fool everyone. Mr. Zhu from Guangzhou also shared his view, saying the delayed retirement policy was passed without public consent and is unlawful. The CCP ignores the people's hardships and doesn't listen to their concerns. They're quick to take money from the people, but if it sacrifices the interests of those in power, they do nothing. This misuse of authority is only going to hurt China's economy even further. Some clear-minded Chinese citizens have begun to ask whether Social Security in China should be free. In this video, the man said, "There's a truth that many people don't know. In most parts of the world, getting a pension is free, meaning you don't have to pay into it ahead of time. We're not just talking about developed countries. Even in places like Mexico, once you reach retirement age, you could get about 2,000 yuan equivalent a month in pension without having paid a cent. So globally, there are two types of pension systems. One type is unconditional, where just being a citizen allows you to receive a pension. The other is paid, and that's called a retirement fund. In mainland China, the most common is employee Social Security. You pay in for 15 years, and after retirement, you get monthly payments. This is called a retirement fund. While part of this is supposed to be covered by the company, in reality, it's just another form of your earnings being paid back to you. So this isn't some kind of government benefit. If you saved up on your own, the result would be the same. The only real government benefit is what's given to you for free, and China doesn't have any government benefits like that. The main reason for the delayed retirement policy is a serious shortfall in China's pension fund, which is controlled by the CCP, along with the rapidly aging population. The Chinese Academy of Social Sciences has even said that the pension fund could run out by 2035. Many people now believe that the government is pushing the delayed retirement plan despite public opposition because it is facing financial issues. In their announcements, the government avoids talking about the pension shortfall. The big gap in the pension fund could be due to poor planning when the Social Security system was set up, corruption within the system, or the money being spent on things the public isn't aware of. Economic commentator Ye Xiao thinks this is linked to the way the CCP handles fiscal transfers. He explained that the CCP uses a centralized system to control how resources are distributed. They call it pooling resources to accomplish major tasks. The central government has total control over resource allocation, and local governments can only act when they receive funds from above. There are two types of transfers: general and special transfers. These funds go to social services like education, healthcare, and social security, as well as economic projects like infrastructure and industry policies. But there's also a big expense the CCP doesn't openly talk about. That's funds for stability maintenance. This is a major part of the CCP spending and a key source of corruption. The CCP enforces social stability by focusing on certain key provinces. They allocate large funds for maintaining control and give high salaries to officials, all with the aim of controlling the people. Political achievements, vanity projects, privileges for top officials, maintaining social order, military expansion, and internet censorship are what the CCP focuses on. Meanwhile, things like public welfare, education, and the pension system are seen as minor issues.